The vacuum revealed a secret in the millionaire's vault. Chapter 1. Marcus Thompson pushed the industrial vacuum cleaner through the mahogany doors of the late Harrison Blackwood's private study, the machine's hum echoing off the vaulted ceilings of the Manhattan penthouse. 6 months had passed since the billionaire's death, and the estate lawyers had finally authorized a complete cleaning before the property went to auction. Marcus had worked for elite cleaning services for 12 years, but he'd never seen wealth like this. Original Monets on the walls, Persian rugs worth more than his annual salary, and a view of Central Park that seemed to stretch forever. The October rain pelted against the floor-to-ceiling windows as Marcus methodically worked his way through the room. He'd learned to be invisible in these spaces, to move like a ghost among the remnants of lives far removed from his own reality in Queens. His supervisor, Janet, had specifically assigned him this job, knowing his reputation for discretion and attention to detail. The Blackwood estate was paying triple rates for absolute confidentiality, though Marcus couldn't imagine what secrets a dead man's empty rooms could hold. As he maneuvered the vacuum near the built-in bookshelf, something unusual caught his attention. The suction seemed stronger near a particular section of the walnut paneling, as if air was being pulled from behind the wall. Marcus knelt down, running his calloused fingers along the seam where the wood met the floor. There was definitely a gap, barely visible but unmistakable once you knew where to look. He should have reported it to Janet, should have continued with his assigned tasks, but curiosity had always been both his strength and weakness. Using the vacuum's crevice tool, Marcus traced the hidden outline of what appeared to be a panel. His heart raced as he pressed gently on different sections of the wood, remembering old movies where hidden safes lay behind moving walls. On his third attempt, he heard a soft click. The panel swung inward, revealing a narrow compartment no bigger than a shoebox. Inside, covered in decades of dust, lay a brass key attached to a leather tag. The tag bore an address, 1247 Riverside Drive, Unit B7, and a date, October 15, 1987. Marcus held the key up to the grey light filtering through the rain-streaked windows. It was heavy, old-fashioned, with intricate engravings along its shaft. He glanced at his phone. October 15th was today's date, exactly 36 years later. The coincidence sent a chill down his spine. He thought about Harrison Blackwood, whose Fortune 500 company had built half of Manhattan's skyline, whose charitable foundation had funded hospitals and schools across the city. What could this key unlock that needed to be hidden so carefully? The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Marcus quickly pocket the key and close the panel. Janet appeared in the doorway, her clipboard in hand and her expression all business. "Thompson, you almost done in here? We've got the master bedroom next, and I want everything finished before the lawyers arrive at 4. Marcus nodded, pushing the vacuum back into motion, the key burning like a coal in his pocket. As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that his simple, predictable life had just taken an unexpected turn. The address on the tag was in Washington Heights, not far from where his grandmother used to live. Whatever Harrison Blackwood had hidden there had waited 36 years to be found. Maybe it could wait a few more hours until Marcus's shift ended. But as he looked out at the city sprawling below, obscured by rain and mist, he knew he wouldn't be able to resist investigating. Some secrets, once disturbed, demanded to be fully revealed. Chapter 2. The storage facility on Riverside Drive stood like a forgotten monument to the past, its Art Deco facade crumbling at the edges, but still maintaining a dignity that spoke of better days. Marcus arrived just as the evening sun broke through the dissipating storm clouds, casting long shadows across the wet pavement. He told his wife, Patricia, that he was working late, the first lie in their 15-year marriage. The weight of it sat heavy in his chest as he climbed the steps to the building's entrance, where a security guard dozed behind bulletproof glass. After signing in with a fabricated story about checking on his late uncle's unit, Marcus navigated the dimly lit hallways to Unit B7. The brass key slid into the lock with surprising ease, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered to life, revealing not the dusty, forgotten space he'd expected, but a meticulously preserved room that looked more like an office than a storage unit. File cabinets lined one wall. A desk sat in the corner with papers still arranged neatly on its surface, and photographs covered a bulletin board, their subjects frozen in time. Marcus approached the photographs first, recognizing a younger Harrison Blackwood immediately. But it was the woman beside him in every photo that made Marcus's breath catch. She was beautiful, with deep brown skin and a smile that seemed to light up even these faded prints. In one photo, she held a baby, and Blackwood's expression as he looked at them both was nothing like the stern businessman Marcus had seen in newspaper obituaries. There was love there, raw and undeniable. A small placard beneath the photos read, "Elena and Michael, 1986-1987. The first file cabinet drawer Marcus opened contained legal documents, correspondence, and what appeared to be a private investigator's reports. As he read through them, a story began to emerge that challenged everything the public knew about Harrison Blackwood. Elena Rodriguez had been a nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital when she met Blackwood in 1985. He was already married to Margaret Whitmore, daughter of a senator and heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune. The marriage was one of convenience, a business arrangement that had built Blackwood's empire, but Eleanor had been love, real love, and their son Michael had been born in secret in 1986. The papers told of Blackwood's attempts to divorce Margaret, of threats from the Whitmore family that would have destroyed not just his business, but hundreds of jobs, entire communities that depended on his companies. Then came the newspaper clipping that made Marcus sink into the desk chair. Local nurse and infant son killed in apartment fire, cause under investigation. The date was December 3rd, 1987, just weeks after the date on the key's tag. The following pages were Blackwood's own investigation, hiring private detectives, forensic experts, all pointing to the same conclusion he could never prove. The fire had been deliberately set. Marcus found himself studying Blackwood's handwritten notes in the margins of reports, the anguish evident in the pressed pen strokes. They took everything that mattered. Margaret knows. The foundation will be their real legacy. That last note was circled multiple times, and Marcus remembered reading about the Elena Rodriguez Memorial Fund, a subdivision of the Blackwood Foundation that specifically helped single mothers and their children. Blackwood had hidden his love in plain sight, honoring them in the only way he could without endangering others. A manila envelope at the bottom of the drawer was marked, "For Michael, if he survived." Marcus's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were bank account information for Swiss accounts, property deeds for homes in various countries, and a letter in Blackwood's shaking hand. The letter began, "If you are reading this, then God has been more merciful than I dared hope. Your mother and I loved you more than words can express." Marcus stopped reading, feeling like an intruder in a tragedy too personal to witness. But beneath the letter was a photograph that made him gasp. It was Eleanor again, holding baby Michael. But standing beside her was a young woman Marcus recognized, Janet, his supervisor, though 36 years younger. Itrusa, Chapter 3. Marcus sat in his car outside Janet's modest apartment building in the Bronx, the October wind rattling the windows as he tried to make sense of what he'd discovered. The photographs from the storage unit lay spread across his passenger seat, and one truth was undeniable. Janet had known Elena Rodriguez. In several photos, she appeared as a young nursing student, Elena's protege and friend. The pieces of a larger puzzle were falling into place, but Marcus couldn't see the full picture yet. After an hour of deliberation, he finally climbed the stairs to Janet's third-floor apartment and knocked. Janet opened the door, still in her elite cleaning services uniform, her expression shifting from surprise to something like relief when she saw Marcus's face. "You found it," she said simply, stepping aside to let him in. Her apartment was small but immaculate, filled with plants and photographs of family members Marcus had heard her mention over the years. She led him to the kitchen, where she poured 2 cups of coffee without asking if he wanted any. I've been waiting 36 years for someone to find that key. I was beginning to think I'd take the secret to my grave. You knew Elena Rodriguez, Marcus said. Not a question, but a statement. Janet nodded, her eyes distant with memory. She was my mentor at Mount Sinai, taught me everything about being a nurse. But more than that, she was my friend. I was there the night Michael was born, helped her through the delivery when Harrison couldn't be there. He was terrified someone would find out, that the Whitmores would hurt them. She pulled out a worn photo album from a kitchen drawer, showing Marcus pictures he hadn't seen in the storage unit. Intimate moments of a secret family trying to exist in the shadows of New York's elite. The night of the fire, Janet continued, her voice catching. Elena had called me, said she was scared. Someone had been following her, leaving threats under her door. Harrison had hired security, but she sent them away that night because Michael had a fever, and she didn't want strangers in the apartment while he was sick. I should have gone over, should have stayed with her, but I had my own baby at home. Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks as she turned to a specific page in the album. There was Eleanor, radiant and alive, holding Michael at his first birthday party just weeks before the fire. Harrison came to me after the funeral, Janet said, composing herself. He was destroyed, but he had a plan. He believed Michael might have survived. The firefighters found evidence that someone had been in the apartment before them, and Michael's body was never definitively identified. The remains they found, the coroner wasn't certain. Harrison spent 20 years searching, hiring investigators across the country, following every lead. He set up the storage unit as a safe house of information, hoping that if Michael had survived, if someone had taken him and raised him elsewhere, he might one day come looking for answers. Marcus felt the weight of the revelation settling on his shoulders. So you took the job at Elite Cleaning to watch over Blackwood's properties? Janet nodded. Harrison got me the position years ago. After he was diagnosed with cancer, he made me promise to ensure someone would find that key after his death. He couldn't risk putting it in his will. Margaret is still alive, still vindictive even in her 90s. Her family's influence runs deep. But he wanted the truth preserved, wanted Michael to know, if he was out there, that he was loved, that his parents' death wasn't an accident. But why me? Marcus asked. Janet studied him carefully before answering. Because you're thorough, honest, and, most importantly, you have no connection to the Blackwood or Whitmore families. I've watched you for years, Marcus. You do the right thing even when no one's watching. Harrison would have trusted you. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the darkness. There's more in that storage unit, Marcus. Financial records showing payments from Margaret Whitmore to certain individuals around the time of the fire. Harrison could never prove it in court, but he documented everything. The question now is what you'll do with this information. Marcus thought about his quiet life, his family, the simplicity he'd always cherished. But he also thought about Elena and Michael, about Harrison Blackwood dying with a broken heart, about justice delayed for 36 years. There's an investigative journalist, Marcus said slowly, Linda Chen at the Times. She's been digging into the Whitmore family's pharmaceutical scandals. This might be the piece she needs to unravel everything. Janet turned from the window, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time. As Marcus gathered the photographs to leave, she grabbed his hand. Harrison left something else, she said, pulling out an envelope with Marcus's name on it. He had several of these prepared for whoever found the key. He said the person who cared enough to investigate deserved to be rewarded. Inside was a check for $200,000 and a note, for your children's education, so they never have to choose between love and security. HB. Chapter 4. 3 weeks after Linda Chen's expose hit the front page of the New York Times, Marcus stood in Woodlawn Cemetery, placing fresh flowers on Harrison Blackwood's grave. The October sky was clear and bright, so different from that rainy day when he'd first found the key. The article had sent shockwaves through New York society, revealing not just the tragedy of Elena and Michael's death, but a pattern of corruption and intimidation by the Whitmore family spanning decades. Margaret Whitmore, now facing investigation despite her advanced age, had retreated to her estate in the Hamptons, her family's pharmaceutical empire crumbling under federal scrutiny. But the most extraordinary revelation had come a week after the article's publication. A man named Michael Santos from Phoenix had contacted Linda Chen. He'd been raised by his aunt, Elena's sister, who had rescued him from the apartment the night of the fire. She'd seen suspicious men watching the building and had climbed the fire escape to get Michael out just minutes before the flames engulfed everything. Terrified of the Whitmores' reach, she'd fled New York, changed their names, and raised Michael as her own son. She'd died 5 years ago, taking the secret with her. But Michael had always wondered about the faded burn scars on his arms and the dreams of a woman singing Spanish lullabies. Marcus had met Michael at the storage unit, watching as the 37-year-old teacher from Phoenix discovered the museum of love his father had preserved. Michael looked just like Harrison in the old photos, but had his mother's warm eyes and gentle manner. He'd wept, reading his father's letter, learning about parents who had loved him more than their own lives. "He spent his whole life looking for me," Michael had whispered, holding a photo of Harrison from just months before his death. "And I never knew to look for him." The inheritance Harrison had hidden away would transform Michael's life, but it was the knowledge of being loved, of being searched for, that had transformed his understanding of himself. Janet had arranged a small gathering at the Eleanor Rodriguez Memorial Center, one of the foundation's crown jewels in Washington Heights. Former nurses who had known Eleanor came, along with families who had been helped by the foundation over the years. Michael heard stories of his mother's compassion, her skill, her laughter that could light up the pediatric ward. He learned about his father's secret visits to the center, how he would sometimes just sit in the garden they'd named after Elena, finding peace in the shadow of his public life. Marcus watched it all unfold, understanding now that Harrison's true legacy wasn't the skyscrapers bearing his name, but these quiet acts of love and remembrance. Patricia had been understanding about the lie Marcus had told that first night, especially after learning the full story. Their own children, inspired by the tale, had started asking questions about family, about history, about the stories that don't make it into newspapers. Marcus had used part of Harrison's gift to take them on a trip to Puerto Rico to show them where their own grandparents had come from, to help them understand that everyone carries hidden histories worth preserving. The rest went into college funds, just as Harrison had intended, ensuring that Marcus's children would have choices he never did. Standing now at Harrison's grave, Marcus read the new headstone Michael had commissioned. Below Harrison's name and dates, it simply read, "Beloved father and partner to Elena Rodriguez, finally reunited." Michael had successfully petitioned to have his mother's remains moved from the potter's field, where she'd been buried, to the plot beside Harrison. They were together now in a way they never could be in life. As Marcus turned to leave, he saw Michael approaching with his own family, a wife and twin daughters who would grow up knowing the full story of their grandfather's love and loss. "Thank you," Michael said simply when he reached Marcus, "for caring enough to look deeper." Marcus shook his hand, understanding that sometimes the most profound inheritances aren't money or property, but truth itself. As he walked back through the cemetery gates, Marcus thought about all the secret stories hidden in the city's magnificent buildings, all the love and loss concealed behind marble facades and polished brass. He'd returned to his work at Elite Cleaning Services, but he saw the spaces differently now. Every room held potential histories. Every forgotten corner might harbor someone's truth waiting to be discovered. The vacuum had revealed more than just a key that day in Harrison Blackwood's study. It had revealed that even in death, love finds a way to endure, and truth, no matter how deeply buried, eventually rises to the surface.